All right, today we're diving deep into a tradition that's been shrouded in mystery for over 400 years. Fascinating thinkers, scientists, and artists along the way, the Rosicrucians. It's a story that kicks off with a secret society, a so-called invisible college, and a pretty bold promise to change the entire world.
So picture this. You wake up in Paris, it's the year 1624, and you find these strange posters plastered all over the city. They're announcing the arrival of a secret brotherhood, this invisible college, and they're promising to share some seriously profound wisdom to, save humanity from itself. As you can imagine, this sparked a massive wave of fascination and a whole lot of debate.
This sudden appearance left Parisians grappling with the exact same questions we're asking today. Who were these Rosicrucians? Seriously, where did they come from? And what on earth was their mission? So let's start to unravel that mystery.
To find the answers, we've got to rewind the clock a bit, back to the beginning of the 17th century. This was a time of just radical change across Europe, and it really set the stage for a kind of intellectual explosion, which is right where our story begins.
I mean, you have to understand this period was just electric with change. Think about it. You've got Copernicus and Galileo totally reshaping our understanding of the cosmos. The Protestant Reformation is splitting the church wide open. And crucially, the brand new printing press means these radical ideas can spread like wildfire. It was the absolute perfect storm for a totally new way of thinking to bubble up.
And bam, right in the middle of all this upheaval, 3 anonymous pamphlets show up, one right after the other. These texts, which we now know as the Rosicrucian Manifestos, basically hit the intellectual world like a lightning bolt. They announced this secret brotherhood and laid out a seriously bold new vision for all of humanity.
So what they were proposing was pretty radical. Through this wild, allegorical story of a founder named Christian Rosenkreuz, they called for a universal reformation. The big idea? Let's unite science, philosophy, and mysticism for the good of everyone. And these ideas were so provocative, they sparked over 400 publications in response. We're talking about some of the greatest minds of the time, from René Descartes to Isaac Newton, who are all grappling with these very concepts.
But what was the actual philosophy behind this call for a global reboot? Well, it really came down to a fundamentally different way of looking at education and, well, human potential itself.
A great way to get this is to think about 4 pillars of education, an idea later identified by UNESCO. See, traditional schooling usually focuses on the first 2, learning to know, memorizing facts, and learning to do, acquiring skills for a job. The Rosicrucian focus, though, was on the other 2, learning to live together in harmony, and maybe most importantly, learning to be, which is all about developing our deepest inner potential.
And this focus on inner work completely reframes the whole idea of utopia. The word literally comes from the Greek for no place, so we often think of it as some impossible fantasy. But for the Rosicrucians, utopia isn't a place you go to. It's an internal state that you build, based on this core principle that thoughts are things. In other words, you build a better world by first building a better mind. Now, to make these big ideas a little more concrete, the tradition relies on some really powerful symbols. And honestly, there's no better way to understand the journey of the seeker than through the symbol of the rose and the bee.
This simple, really elegant phrase from the philosopher Robert Fludd, "The rose gives honey to the bee." It pretty much contains the entire philosophy in a nutshell. It's a beautiful metaphor for the relationship between someone who's seeking in divine wisdom, and every single part of it has a deep, deep meaning.
Okay, so let's break this down. The rose, that represents the source of all wisdom, what you might call the universal soul. The bee, well, that's us, the dedicated seeker drawn to that source of wisdom. And the honey, that's the sacred knowledge, the truth that the seeker gathers. And notice, it's not just handed over. It has to be collected through real effort.
This whole process follows what they call the law of the triangle. And what's so cool about it is that it's a complete rejection of blind faith. First comes knowledge, which you get through hard work and study. Then comes trust, which you build by actually applying that knowledge and seeing that it works. And only then, from that solid foundation of proven knowledge and trust, does loyalty to the path naturally emerge. It's all about experience, not dogma.
Okay, but this brings up a huge question, right? How does a 400-year-old tradition stay relevant today in our modern world? The answer, it turns out, is in how it views tradition itself, not as a chain, but as a stepping stone. See, a tradition can be like a chain, just weighing you down with outdated beliefs from the past. Or it can be a stepping stone,
a solid foundation of past wisdom that you can actually use to climb higher and reach a whole new level of understanding. The Rosicrucian view is really clear on this. Tradition has to be a living, evolving tool, not some dusty relic in a museum.
And this leads to a kind of personal call to action. The idea is that we all have this mental attic, right? It's filled with all the inherited beliefs and old ideas we've collected over the years. The path of the seeker requires us to open up that attic, clean out all the cobwebs, and really rationally examine every single thing we think we hold to be true.
So, after exploring all this history, philosophy, and symbolism, what's the endgame? What is the ultimate goal of all of this? Where does this path actually lead?
Ultimately, it all comes down to one word: empowerment. The purpose isn't just to learn a bunch of ancient secrets, it's to use these principles as tools. Tools to help you discover the wisdom that, guess what, already exists inside you. And with that wisdom, the goal is to become the true architect of your own life.
And so, that brings us right back to our central question. Is this whole idea, building a better world by first building a better self, is that just some utopian fantasy? Or is it maybe a practical blueprint for a new kind of reality? The Rosicrucian tradition doesn't give you the answer. It asks you to find it for yourself.